August 31st, 7:30, Hard Rock Stadium, rivalry renewed as Miami takes on Notre Dame. Catholics versus convicts. Notre Dame national runner-up last year. Miami just outside of the playoffs, hoping to change that this year. And one of the big key acquisitions in the offseason, former Georgia quarterback Carson Beck, who actually I found out committed to the U when he was in high school at one point, decommitted, and of course ended up at Georgia. So now he's getting his second chance at playing for the U. Did have that elbow surgery in the offseason, got injured in the SEC championship game. He's had a somewhat bumpy ride here in Miami with the cars being stolen, and he and his girlfriend broke up, Haley Cavender. A lot of people saying, we don't know. It's a big question mark. Mario Cristobal has come out and said should be untethered this year, should be fine. He started to throw again. We're looking like everything's going to be great. Some people still, a little nervous. Alex Dunno, I know you recently had a broadcast and you had an article about don't worry about Carson Beck. Why should we not be so worried about Carson Beck this coming season?
Well, first of all, like the whole thing about the personal stuff, the car getting stolen and the breakup. I mean, that stuff, Dan, happened so long before the season. Like you're talking about, what was that, March, February, when that stuff was going on? Like, by the time they even start training camp, which is usually late July, by the time they play their first game, August 31st, like that stuff is going to be so far in the rear view. But I know that stuff generates clicks. It's the TMZ type of content. People love to talk about that. I mean, he's already focused on football, which was clear. He recently did an interview on actually a Georgia podcast, but talking about it was really an opportunity I got to kind of get to know what Carson Beck is all about off the field, because he hasn't spoken much with the Miami media yet because they didn't make him available during spring because he was injured. That's like common policy. So as far as like the actual football stuff and the elbow, as Cristobal has mentioned it throughout the past couple of weeks, he's ahead of his physical benchmarks, and he's been cleared to throw now for about a month and a half. Like he's been able to, and recently he's had no restrictions whatsoever. So he's having the opportunity now to do player run practices and workouts with his receivers, because he's always been, since he got here in January, he immersed himself in the playbook and the offense. And it seems like he has a good grasp of that, which probably comes with his experience, being a senior, having the 24-3 record as a starting quarterback. Like he's ahead of the curve because he's been around college football for so long. And now he's really adapting to the physical part of it. But I mean, am I going to sit here and tell you there's absolutely no concern whatsoever? I'm not going to say that because, it's never ideal to sign a new quarterback through the portal and him not being able to throw during spring. It puts you a little bit behind, right? Cam Ward last year, from the second he got to campus, no injuries, in January of 2024, was able to start throwing, went through the entire spring practice. That got him even more ahead of the game. Carson has not been able to do that. But I trust his experience level, that he's going to get on that same page pretty quickly. I know he and Shannon Dawson, Miami's offensive coordinator, spent a lot of time together during the spring to kind of make sure he learns the playbook. And Dawson has been pleasantly surprised by just, how high Beck's football IQ is. Like he doesn't have the same personality as Ward. He's not as much in your face and talking trash in the huddle. And so like, he's not maybe as much of a type A personality, but he's somewhere close to that. But I think he's going to be all caught up by the time the season starts. And thankfully, Miami has added some more weapons for him, right? I mean, because you lost your top 4 wide receivers from last season, either to the NFL or one to the transfer portal. But Miami went out in the spring transfer portal, and they add Keelan Marion from BYU, who's a talented receiver and a really good kick returner. They added Tony Johnson from Cincinnati, who's a really strong slot receiver, trying to give another option to fill the Xavier Restrepo void, which they might fill by committee, by the way. Like it might be a combination of Tony Johnson and Malachi Tony and Ray Joseph to kind of fill that Restrepo hole. Back in the winter portal, they added CJ Daniels, an experienced 6-year receiver from LSU, from your team, Dan, who's done really well since spring. He's a leader. So yeah, I mean, between Carson Beck, the offensive line, some of the players Miami has added to go along with a guy like JoJo Trader, who I think is going to have a breakout year at receiver this year. I think Miami's in pretty good shape. I don't think they're going to put up quite as many points as they put up last year, but I think the offense is going to be all right.
Yeah, and a lot of people kind of worried about Carson Beck, like how much of a leader is he with all the distractions and all that stuff. He is not Cam Ward. He's not the big vocal, loud, in-your-face type of guy like you said. And everybody's like, well, Cam Ward showed up, and I saw the interviews you did with him where he knew everybody's first name on the first day of practice, and he was yelling at people, and he was all over the place. What's Carson Beck doing? Well, Carson Beck has taken his guys out to Prime 112. He's done some team building stuff, bought some lunches, bought some dinners, and given them some stuff. It's just not as loud and proud as Cam Ward. So I think if people are worried about a leadership aspect of Carson Beck, I don't think you have anything to worry about. He had no problems with it at Georgia at the highest of high levels. And for people that are saying, oh yeah, but he had a bad season last year, let me remind you, Alex Dono, going into the college football playoffs, the number 2 seeded team was one Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing about like the bad. Okay, so for him, because he set the bar so high in 2023. So for him, the alleged bad season last year was 3,500 passing yards. Like, it's an allegedly bad season for him. I mean, it wasn't the year that he had in 2023, but then last year, he didn't have as much help. He lost Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey from the previous year. Georgia last year was 102nd in rushing, which is like, I mean, usually Georgia is loaded up with running backs and running. Like, they had an off year running the football. They also didn't protect Beck very well. I think they were 57th in the country in sacks given up, which is bang average. Like, Georgia should never be average when it comes to protecting their quarterback. And his receiving core last year at UGA literally led the nation in drops. Like, I was reading a stat recently that had all or most of those catchable passes been held on to, he wouldn't have had, 3,400 yards and change. He would have had like 3,800 yards last year. So it wasn't all on Carson Beck. Like, does he want to have some of his he threw 12 interceptions last year, which wasn't good enough. Would he want to have some of those throws back? Absolutely. But I do think people are magnifying, what was not as good of a year for him last year. Some of that was on him. A lot of it was not on him. People are really magnifying that. And I think they magnify it for 2 reasons, Dan. Number one, he's now in Miami. People love to hate on Miami. And, number 2, Beck had so much hype leading into last year, right? He was the odds-on Heisman Trophy favorite before the 2024 season started. So I think anytime you fall short of that hype, you're going to get scrutinized for it. And now you leave Georgia for Miami, you're going to get scrutinized. So Carson Beck is really under a microscope, but I really get the sense that, despite the fact he was dating a Cavender twin and everything, and they're all over TikTok, like that was not his scene. Like, he's not, I don't think he's been on TikTok since the breakup. Like, that's not his thing. He's focused on football, and hopefully it pays off for Miami. Because again, this guy's got a ton of experience and a 24-3 record as a starter. You're going to go out and try to replace Cam Ward. You couldn't have done a lot better than Miami did there.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying right there. There's anybody that can handle the scrutiny. It is one Carson Beck, who has played on the biggest of big stages in the biggest of big areas with all the biggest coverage. The spotlight's not too big for him. Look, when you're at a school like Georgia and you're winning national championships and you are a starting quarterback, and you're having basically the press cover you in that area and in the SEC for the most part, and even the country, because they're a national brand, Georgia, right now with Kirby Smart, you're always in the spotlight. You're always being scrutinized. So this is just business as usual, I would say, for Carson Beck. I don't think it's really changed all that much. The location has changed, but the scrutiny and the expectations and everything else is the same. And this is the other thing I want to say about Carson Beck. If he had a bad year last year, I hope if he has a bad year this year and the Miami Hurricanes have a bad year this year and they end up in the college football playoffs, much less a number 2 seed, I'll take that bad year. And I think most teams in the nation will take that type of a bad, quote unquote, bad year.
Well, and honestly, like heading into this season, quarterback is not like at the top of my list of questions for this team.
I was going to say, what concerns you most with this team?
Yeah. So honestly, the need to replace the pass catching production from last year. Like, I talk about the receivers that they brought in, because, Miami, if you include tight end Elijah Arroyo, they lost their top 5 pass catchers in terms of stats from last year. So there's a lot of that depending on how these guys do, it's going to help Carson look even better. That's a question. Pretty much everything on the defensive side of the ball, Dan. And, Mario Cristobal, is anyone who listens to Locked On Canes knows this. I talk about this all the time. He's done everything he can to give that defense a facelift from last year. Because, the reason why Miami didn't get to the ACC championship game because they couldn't protect a 21-0 lead at Syracuse, and why they didn't get to the college football playoff. Same reason, because you win that game, you get to both of those things. You get to the ACC championship game, you get to the CFP. It was the defense fading down the stretch and not playing up to Miami's standards. So Cristobal is doing everything he can to try and fix that. You let your former defensive coordinator go, and you bring in Corey Heatherman, who basically worked a miracle with Minnesota's defense last year. Try to do the same thing with Miami this year. You add like every defensive back available, all the top guys in the portal. Like Miami went out and grabbed almost all of. There was only one top target that they missed out on. They got everybody else, including Xavier Lucas, the corner from Wisconsin, Keontae Scott, the nickel from Houston, who I like, Jacoby Thomas, safety from Tennessee, Zechariah Poyser, the safety from Jacksonville State, who played spring ball at Miami and looked really good. So the defensive secondary was just bad, especially safeties last year. They're trying to fix that. They've got the new coordinator, who's also the linebackers coach. I'm hearing in off-season workouts, Dan, one of the players that's really been impressive is Mohamed Toure, who's a linebacker from Rutgers that Miami added in the transfer portal. Corey Heatherman, the DC, coached him at Rutgers 2 years ago, because Heatherman used to be the linebackers coach at Rutgers. They've got a lot of talent on the defensive line. I think that they didn't reach their potential last year because there were too many stunts and twists up front. They needed to be more direct to the quarterback, which they're going to try to do this year. So, to me, Dan, if the defense is fixed in terms of like above average to good, hopefully great this year, but if the defense is like good this year, then that would be my number one concern. And then, of course, what I expect to be the strength of the Miami Hurricanes this year, it needs to be that, and that's the offensive line and the running game, because Miami's got one of the better offensive lines in the country. Like, they're going to be on all the Joe Moore Award watch lists before the season starts, if they're not already, and they've got at least 3 running backs who can be impact guys. Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lyle, who we've already seen at Miami. And this transfer running back that they brought in from North Dakota State, I'm really excited about, Shamar Brown. That dude is an animal. He's ready to make that power 4 jump, and he's a complete runner. And I think Miami, so they have at least 3 guys who can push the envelope when it comes to running the football. So, obviously you need everything to go right. And even in the ACC, Clemson looks really good. So to win the ACC, you're going to have to get through Clemson. That was also the team to get through last year, and Miami couldn't even get to the ACC championship game. So, you have a lot of things have to break your way to get through Clemson this year, but I think Miami has enough talent where they can be in that conversation.
So Carson Beck, maybe not all eyes on you, Corey Heatherman, maybe more eyes on you than possibly Carson Beck, but the end of this year, the last 2 games on the road, Virginia Tech, Pitt, make me a little nervous, but then again, if you got good offensive line, good defensive line, that helps you in any weather at any time of the year. So